I am Jana Proffitt Davis. This is Paws and Prize, my YouTube channel. I am excited to present to you conversations with breeders and owners of top winning dogs, top owner handlers, top junior handlers, and top professional handlers, and other people that you might find informative and interesting concerning top dogs in their fields. Today, I am happy to introduce you to Brenda Castle. This episode is going to focus on her history, her breeding program, what she does for her puppies, and how she selects new puppy buyers. Where does the breed come from and what is their function? She is a preservation breeder dedicated to keeping the breed of Basenjis pure and viable. We are going to see some ring time video of her Grand Champion Bronze Signet Southern Bound, owned by Brenda and her daughter, Sierra Castle. Sierra is a wonderful handler and will carry on Brenda's breeding program for the future. Most importantly, we will hear advice from a professional in her field.
Hi, I'm Brenda. I have second generation in the breed of Basenjis. My family got its first Basenji in 1972, and I got involved in the sport in 74, 76 in junior handling. I grew up in Colorado, so I showed in the Rocky Mountain area. Currently, one of my children is a professional handler and has followed in my footsteps. All three of my children did show in junior showmanship, and I have grandkids that are also involved in the sport.
Cool. And you had an exchange student come from?
I have had two exchange students come in the last couple of years. I had a girl from Spain. She was very competitive, and I asked her if she wanted to learn how to show dogs. She got here in August, and she was in the ring at the end of September showing dogs, doing very well. She qualified for Westminster. The second student came from France, also very competitive, but she spent a lot of time doing sports like volleyball and basketball and soccer and tennis. She was big in tennis, and so she did also show, but she didn't show enough to qualify.
So let's start out with the standard of the breed. If you can explain the standard to us.
So the Basenjis are very ancient from Africa, and so they're one of the more wilder breeds. They should be a square dog. They should appear to be higher on leg than they are long. They should be clean boned, fine boned. They should carry themselves very proudly. When moving, they should look like a racehorse trotting full out. That's probably from the old standard.
So what were they bred to do?
So Basenjis were bred in the Congo and still exist there to this day. And they are bred to hunt small game by flushing them into nets. They are still used to this day. We still have pictures. We've still had several excursions to Africa that I was invited to, but I am not that much of an explorer. My daughter would love to go. I think that they were planning one more excursion to bring some dogs back, but that got nixed by the COVID, and I don't know if they have plans to go back. But when you do go back, these dogs are still in very remote areas. It takes days to reach these villages by vehicle because the roads they're not roads, they're trails, and they are not kept. So these dogs that they bring back are supposed to be in their purest form.
Years ago, you were involved in dogs that were brought from the Congo. Tell about that.
Yes, although I didn't go on the excursions, I'm close friends with all the people who did. And when the Africans were first brought in, a lot of the fancy did not want anything to do with them. They thought we would ruin the breed. This includes the color brindle. The brindle was thought to be impure and brought about by a cross in the breed. And so many of the fanciers were very anti-African and very anti-brindle. I was one of the first breeders to embrace the African lines. I did breed into the African lines, and I actually had the first 1/4 African bitch that won a group. And she was a top Basenji.
What year was that?
Gosh, that would have been in the early 80s.
How often have you had litters, or how often do you have litters, and how many litters have you had? And explain to me the champions that you've had, or that you've bred, and what you're looking for in those.
So I can't tell you how many litters I've had. I generally have about 2 litters per year, no more than 3. And to be honest, I am starting to wind down a little bit, hoping to pass the breeding aspect on to my daughter, who's younger and more energetic. But we generally have 2 litters a year, and we evaluate our puppies from the bottom up. So we will evaluate between 5 and 6 weeks which puppies we think are not exemplary, not outstanding. They could still very well be finishable, and those are the ones we choose to go to our companion homes. The show puppies are chosen very last at the last minute. So at the 8 to 10 week mark, at 10 weeks we allow our companion puppies to leave while we're still evaluating the show puppies. What this typically means is 2 puppies out of a litter of, say, 4 to 6 have gone home, and the other 2 are still with us to be evaluated. If we have show homes, we wait until we're sure that this puppy is going to meet the expectations of the buyer. You have some buyers who want a top special. These are not things you can tell at 8 to 10 weeks. You just can't tell. You have other people who just want a nice show dog. That you can tell at 8 to 10 weeks. As far as, I can't tell you how many litters I've bred, but I have nearly 200 champions, and I'm hoping to retire at 200 champions, and I have around 170 at this current time.
170 what?
170 champions.
Wow. So how important is health testing for your litters?
So
Or for the sire and the dam?
So we do all the testing for Fanconi and PRA. Fanconi has been in our breed for quite some time. We've nearly obliterated it. You will still see it in the puppy mill and backyard mill bred dogs, but responsible breeders, there's just no need to have it. So OFA says that if you've had 2 generations clear of your Fanconi, you don't have to continue to test. So we don't have to, but I think being responsible, you probably should randomly do a check now and then just to make sure it's all good.
What is that?
So Fanconi is a disease that affects the kidneys, where they are unable to process, they spill sugar into the urine, and they have to go on a protocol. I've actually never had a Fanconi dog that I'm aware of, so I don't really know a whole lot about that, but it was a condition that can be managed, but it was fatal. So your dogs could die at 4, 5, 6, 7 years of age. PRA is a blindness. We do testing for that. Some people test for thyroid. I don't in general. I've not had problems that I know of. I know a lot of people say, well, if you're not testing, you don't know, but there are signs. You've got your overweight dogs, you have your coat problems, you have some skin disorders, things like that, temperament issues. I don't routinely test for it, although if we have puppy clients that complain of some certain things, we will suggest that they do it. And the other testing that we do is for hips through the OFA. We will either OFA the dogs at 2 years of age, or we will prelim them before we breed them.
Are some of those a recessive gene that cause those conditions?
I'm not sure.
PRA is a recessive gene.
Then
What about the first one?
It should be, Fanconi should be recessive.
Okay. But hip dysplasia can just appear randomly and you really
Hip
never
dysplasia
know.
can come anywhere, and I have had some battles with the hip dysplasia in the past that I've worked very hard to resolve, and knock on wood, things are looking a lot better.
When you have a bitch that you breed, do you require the male, if you go out of your stock, do you require the male to have the health test?
Yes, we do. Typically, I breed within my own stock. I have a very tight line. I do not do well when I outcross. I have to be very careful. There's certain lines that my dogs cross very well with, but as far as just picking a beautiful dog that I think is lovely, and he has his health testing and breeding to it, I am very much a pedigree breeder. I have to look at the pedigree and see what's back there. My highest success has come from my tightly line bred litters.
So what's the difference between line breeding and what people would call inbreeding?
Line breeding is taking an individual from the pedigree and bringing it back into the pedigree, and often when I do that, the other side of that dog, say the sire will be the line bred and the female will be a little bit of an outcross. Inbreeding will be brother, sister, aunt, uncle, that kind of thing. I'm not a fan of that, and especially because I'm so tight, I just wouldn't subscribe to that.
What's the detail your whelping process? And like when after you've bred and you have the puppies, starting with the first day of birth?
So I'm probably one of those weird people who doesn't take temperatures. My bitches whelp pretty much mostly on day 58, 59. So we will monitor them, looking for the mucus plug to drop, looking for the puppies to drop in the abdomen. We whelp our own puppies. The Basenjis are very natural whelpers. It's usually very easy. We've had a couple of mothers that didn't want to be mothers, and it was challenging. I have one particular line that they're very rough at the first beginning. They don't want the puppies. They don't understand them. But after about 24 hours, they do well. They are free whelpers. We usually unwrap the puppies ourselves. We allow the bitch to eat maybe 2 placenta. We take the rest away. We clip cords ourselves because the Basenjis will continue to nitpick at those cords until they get them way too close. So we prefer to cut them pretty short to where mom can't nip on them. We like to give our bitches a shot of oxytocin. And during the labor, we also, right after the labor, we'll give cottage cheese or yogurt. And she will get that through the entirety of her litter. Don't really have to do much with Basenji moms. The first 3 weeks is very simple. They feed. You can't get them out of the crate hardly for anything to go outside. They don't want to be away from the puppies. So generally mine are locked in the whelping pen only because I don't want the puppies to fall out, but they don't want to go out.
Your lines are known for good temperaments. Explain the temperaments that can manifest in different lines of Basenjis and your lines.
So Basenji temperament has been something that breeders have worked on for years and years and years. And if you talk to the old people who used to handle them, like Gene Blake, he told me a story about a dog that he had back in the day. He traveled in a station wagon, and he had a Basenji, and it was in the back of the station wagon. And when he came out to get it, it had torn up the entire back of the vehicle. And dogs back then were mean. They would attack the handlers. They would attack the judges. It was bad. And the breed got a very bad rap. Even in the 80s, we were battling that with the older judges who, that was their expectation, that Basenjis are really mean and you can't trust them. People have worked really hard on the line. I can tell you that the Africans are extremely soft and extremely kind, almost too soft. I think adding them into some people's lines has really helped. Can't say if it really helped mine or not. I never had those really hard temperaments. But we socialize our puppies. They're in our hands from the time they're about 5 weeks old. They're stacked on the table continuously. They're in our laps upside down, getting their nails ground week after week after week. When they're old enough to go to shows, they come along with us. We actually have some with us now. From the time they're about 12 weeks, when they've had their final shots, we start bringing them to shows, usually in pairs, and that helps with our crate training. And we find that really helps with the temperament. We just don't really have, you won't see a whole lot of bad-tempered Basenjis that you get from a responsible breeder.
Since they are so primitive and you see one and they like to be the alpha dog of the household, and you see a new owner of a Basenji that has one that is exerting their authority over the household, at 6 months, you see them at their first show. How would you straighten that puppy out for that owner?
So that is one thing we discuss with all of our owners when we sell our puppies, is that this type of behavior, there's certain behaviors we don't allow. Growling is not cute and it's not funny, especially in this breed. Guarding food or bones, not allowed. So we work with our buyers and tell them exactly what they need to do. This is why we ask that they put the puppy upside down in their lap from the time they get the puppy, to do the nails, and to do other dominance training with them. We ask that they take them everywhere with them. We ask that they allow the dogs to meet strangers, and that when you meet a stranger, give them a little doggy biscuit that you've carried with you and ask them to give the puppy the biscuit. We can't have that behavior. So when I have somebody that's going to be in the show ring, exert these issues, we get on it right away. We approach this as 10 out of 10. You do not discipline a Basenji at a 2 or 3. No, don't do that. That does not work with the breed. You come in like a ton of bricks. You let them know under no uncertain terms that no means no, and that behavior is not acceptable. You might have to do something like that twice, but then you'll never have to do it again. you come in with your little, no, no, don't do it. Oh, not bad dog. Or your very, very minimal correction, and you're going to have the dog continually escalate to that until you've got a problem.